Hello again everyone. Today I'm going to try and do a woodland scene inside half of a clear plastic bauble with a little mouse in it. I'm just going to use half with a clay background on it, so it's a bit like a viewing porthole if you like. So I'll be using white clay for the background. So first of all I'm just going to use this white clay that's from Hobbycraft. I can't remember how much it was. I've had it for at least a year. I had opened it last year and just kept it in a plastic bag, and it's still not dried out. I can't remember how much it was, but it wasn't expensive. So what I'm going to do is just keep rolling that until I think I've got all the cracks and air pockets out of it. So I'll just do that and then I'll switch to a rolling pin. Okay, so I think I've got the creases out. It won't matter to the look of it, but I don't want it cracking when it's dried. So I'm going to put just a bit of plastic over it just so that it doesn't stick to my rolling pin. I don't want it too thick because I don't want it to weigh a ton. I don't want it too thin either, because I think it warps when it dries if it's too thin. I want it kind of even. This plastic's actually a tiny bit textured, but it doesn't matter. Tree bark's textured anyway, so. So I don't want to go much thinner than that. I want to make sure it's going to be big enough as well. Yeah, okay. So I've only done it about that thick. I know it's a bit thinner at this corner, but it should be more or less even in the middle. And luckily I've got this embossing folder with, I'm sorry about the camera angle, by the way. I've just not got a proper setup where I can do it overhead, so I'm just having to do it like this for now with the camera at my side. I've got this embossing folder that has a wood effect on it. I don't know if to use that side or that side. That feels deeper, so I'm going to go ahead and use that side. Just press it in. In fact, I'm going to use the rolling pin for that. And what I'll do when it's dried is I'll just I may spray paint it with black first of all, and then for the deeper impressions, and then go over it with browns and greens and things like that. Okay. That line will bug me, but I suppose I could fix it. Might try and not press right to the edge of the folder. Okay, so it's got a little bit that's not been done there, but because I'm going to have foam for the flooring, that'll be hidden anyway, it doesn't matter. So I'm just going to press it in lightly and then I'll cut around it with a knife. trying to think if I'm going to glue this onto the back, so I don't want it pressing in, so I'm going to get the knife and do just outside of it. Sorry, someone's at the door. That'll be a second. Okay, where was I? Apologies again. I checked my video back and I've realised that I've kept pulling my work closer and closer to myself and taking it away from the camera, so sorry again about the view. Okay, so I'm just going to use a little craft knife and just mark, just so that I can glue this. Instead of, I thought you could push it in so that the edge is inside this, but I don't suppose it makes any difference really. It just might be easier if it's glued on top. Doesn't matter if it's a bit rough because I can just get some water and smooth it out, or sand it later when it's dried. I'm probably making the camera zoom in and out because I keep wafting in front of it, but again, apologies. I will improve. It's just awkward because I'm trying to work at an angle to where my body is. Okay. I'm going to keep that little bit on where it's got that. Just so that if I have it as a hanging thing, might just make it that little bit stronger rather than that little bit of plastic holding the whole weight of the thing. Why are all my craft knives blunt? I think it's because I abuse all my tools. Don't cut where I can't see my line. So I'm expecting this will take at least a day to dry, because I did make a little thing yesterday that's still not dry, but I think it's not a very cold day, but it's not warm either, so I think in cold weather it'll just take longer to dry out. In fact, it was warmer outside than in my house yesterday. It's usually the case. Go outside for a warm. Oh. But while this is drying, I can be getting on with needle felting the mouse, I suppose, and going collecting things that I can use. But I just wanted to get this bit done. I think I'm going to opt for just sanding that when it's finished. Just making sure I'm happy with the thickness. Yeah, it'll do. Okay, so that excess clay I can just stick back in the bag, in the foil bag where the rest of it. And I might actually cut my foam for the flooring, which is just a recycled bit of settee. My parents got a new settee and went scavenging for a different project, but I got so much of it, there's plenty to use for this piece. Okay, so I've got my piece of foam ready. I'll have to show you what I've made. Well, partly made. We've started making it, me and my little boy, what we've used the foam for. Okay, so I'm just going to use my drawing that I did just to see how far up I wanted the flooring to come to. Need a pen. My craft room's such a tip. I can't move. Right. I know I've got a pen somewhere. Bear with. Just got a Sharpie. It doesn't matter about any marks that... Oh, I don't want a mark on my bauble though. Doesn't matter about any marks on the form because it's going to be painted. So... keep coming too far up. Maybe about there. Just don't want to touch the bauble with this. Okay. So actually, at least cutting the clay like I did, I'm not having to account for that little bit less of a depth because all of the foam will be fitting into this on top of the clay. I'll have to account for it fitting in within the edge though. Okay, so I'm just going to cut around this bit first. It's not the easiest thing to use for cutting foam. Just get it more or less. I suppose any imperfections at the back won't matter either, so I just want the front to be flush with the front of the bauble. Oh. When I cut this foam for the other project, my living room was just full of bits of foam everywhere. So obviously I'm going to have to try and round it off. I'm actually going to paint it and then put loads of pine needles on top. So it doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, it might be better that it's not perfect. I feel like this first attempt isn't going to go right. No, let's see how far. I suppose it'll squash as well. Now that's not too bad actually, but I want it sloping slightly uphill, so I'm going to take some more off. My scissors are sticky. I was doing some leather work the other day with contact adhesive. It was all over my scissors. Sorry, I'm probably boring you to death here, aren't I? Oop. Okay, so let's just have a look against my picture. I think I'll probably slope it a little bit more than that. Yeah. It's hard to do without gluing it in. Okay, I can probably take a little bit more off the height there actually. I'll do that now without having the camera on. I think you've seen enough of that. Okay, so actually that fits quite nice. It's just sticking out from the back just a little bit, so I'm just going to turn it over. Trying to keep my scissors level with the top of the bauble. I'm just going to snip that off. It's not crucial this bit because you're not going to see this bit. And I could have just squashed the foam in really, but okay. So just angle it a little bit more. Once it's glued, it will. It just keeps wanting to spring up a little bit. There we go. So I've got a Scots pine tree outside that I've cut, and all the pine needles have gone brown. 'Cause we did cut it a couple of months ago, 3 months ago maybe. So I'll go and collect some of those and any little bits of twigs and things I can find. Actually, I'm going to paint this first so that that can be drying as well. I'm just using acrylic paints, dark umber and black mixed together, just so that it looks like soil. I don't have to do the back side, it's going to be stuck onto the clay at the back. I put a little bit of water in as well, just so that it sinks into the sponge a bit more. You might not have to do that with all acrylics, but I find this Crawford and black quite thick. So I'm just going to paint all that you can see, even underneath the bauble. Just realised I was holding it the wrong way around, so I ended up painting the back anyway. Maybe mark on which is your back part. It doesn't really matter anyway. It'll still glue good. And it'll be trapped anyway, as long as it doesn't lift up. Right, so I can go and get some fresh air and go and look for some pine needles while that dries. Okay, so I'm back with a few bits that I've found from here and there and everywhere. Pine needles are a bit long, so off my tree outside, so I'm going to cut those down, I think, and put them along the front if they look alright when I've cut them. I did pull some new growth off the end of the branches of the bit of the tree that I've not cut, but I don't want any moisture being trapped in the bauble because it might mist up, So I've just quickly blitzed them in the microwave. I just did it a few seconds at a time because there's resin still in it. It was giving off fumes. So it seems to have dried it and it's still slightly green, but there should be an absolute minimum of moisture in them, I think. See, they're falling to bits. What else have I got? That I don't know where that's come from. I just found that. I do model railways as well, so this moss was green. It was bought in a floristry section of Hobbycraft, I think, years ago. You can get preserved moss or coloured moss, which I would have thought this is, but it has gone brown over time, but I might include that. I've even been pulling at my Christmas decorations and got a couple of little tiny pine cones, because my Scots pine has got huge cones. It's not, there was just those two on the ends of a couple of the branches. This again is from model shop packs for railways. Sea foam, I don't know what that is, bit of green fluff. Coconut fibre, that was off some kind of display or something, like in a floristry display, and a little bit of Christmas tree type thing. I might not use all of it, but I'll just see what looks alright. My sponge finally dried. It did take a while because I put water in it actually. I put it on the radiator to dry. So I'm just going to make sure which is the front. My clay's still not dry, by the way. So when it goes white like that, this was just something I was messing with the other day. When it goes white, then I'll know it's dry. If I do put lights in, I will drill a hole, but I've not made a hole yet because I'm not sure about that idea. So I'm just going to start sticking a bit of pine needles, just on the front and on the top, I think, but I'm going to cut them into little bits first. I do apologise if the camera's picking up the noise disturbance. It's just next door's dog. Doesn't need to completely cover the foam. Like I said, it should just look like soil. And I'm not going to do right underneath. I'm not sure which glue to use. I might use a mixture of Mod Podge. I might use Mod Podge to stick these needles on, but then use it's probably a bit overkill, but maybe Gorilla Glue for the other bits. I don't want to use my glue gun because it does leave visible blobs of white, so, well, my glue sticks do. They're just cheap glue sticks, and I've found that it doesn't bond that well. Anyway, maybe because it's going off too quickly because it's cold in here. Okay, so that's the front. I'm just going to literally slap it on. It does dry clear, so I'm putting a lot on because I think some of it may sink into the sponge. And then I'm just going to sprinkle this on randomly. I know some of it's not going to stick and I may have to put some more on, but just for an initial layer I'll do that. Okay, so it's not quite dry. I have speeded it up a little bit by using the heat gun, but not too much because the Mod Podge starts to bubble. Before I glue any of the other bits on, like twigs or a pine cone or anything, I'm going to actually glue it into the bauble using Gorilla Glue, so then I can more see what it is going to look like. So I may still get bits falling off, but it doesn't really matter. I'll wait till the glue's dried and then give it one more little shake. Okay, so I'm just gonna glue it underneath. I'm probably making it take longer to dry properly, but I'm impatient. I just want to get it in the bauble. And this does dry clear, this contact adhesive. Okay, so I found that it was a little bit too high for what I wanted, so I just snipped a little bit out the middle and just pressed on it. I'll have to fluff everything back up, I think, when it's more or less done, but my mouse is going to be sat in the middle anyway. So I'm going to use Gorilla Glue now just to stick the pine cones in. This isn't my mouse, but I just got this lump of fluff just to test how big my mouse would be roughly. So say it'd be about that big. So it just helps me to decide where to put the pine cones and things. So I'm going to do that now. I need both hands, I'm afraid, in front. I did get a bit of the Gorilla Glue. I had some on my hand and just touched the outside of the bauble, which I can't get off properly, which is annoying me really, but I may do like a willow weave surround to it anyway and just hide that bit. Okay, so I think the flooring's more or less done apart from the mushrooms. I will be sticking some moss and things on the back, at the back I think as well. And then there's just my mouse to make. The clay's dry now, it's taken a couple of days, so I'm just going to sand the edge. did run my finger around it when it was semi-dry, so I've not got that much work to do. Okay, just tidy up that top bit a bit. There we go. Actually, it must still have a bit of dampness in it. I think it's just at the back though. So I'm going to use the black and the burnt umber acrylic paints again. I could have spray painted it, but I have to move loads of things to get out my husband's spray paint stash, so I thought I can't be bothered, I'll just paint it with a brush. Oops. I'm not going to wet it, I'm not going to mix water with it, sorry, I'm just going to slap this on as is, because I don't want to be re-wetting my clay. I don't want to put it on too thickly because I don't want to lose the definition of the imprint too much. I'm just going to try and push it into the deeper parts though. This is why I was going to use spray paint. It just gets into those deeper parts more easily. It shouldn't take long to dry that. And then I'm just going to use a sponge and just very lightly dab over the surface with the burnt umber. Just make it so I've not got as much paint on my sponge. And just, I don't really need to do the bottom, like I said, you're not going to see the bottom because of the earth. I've painted around the edge as well, around the side. Also going to use a bit of green. This is just sap green. I will be sticking things on that look like moss, but I thought I'll just add to the colour as well with the paint. Not all over, just in some areas. There we go, I'm quite happy with that. So now I'm just going to use the modelling Scenics stuff, break it up a bit and stick some on for moss. I quite like the contrast with the background, so I'm not going to stick too much on. Okay, so yeah. For the mushrooms, I've decided to go with using wire from I just bought this from the gardening section in Wilko's, I think it was. I'm cutting it longer than I need it to be, so that I can push some of the wire into the ground so that it's more secure. And I'll paint it whatever colour I need it to be. And then for the top bit, I'm going to just use Fimo. This is a flesh coloured Fimo that I've had for a long time, so it's getting a bit crumbly, even though it's been kept in a tin. And I'm not saying it's been airtight, but I have had it a long time, and it is still workable. But like I said, it's just gone a bit crumbly and dry, but it has gone soft again with rolling it in my hands. I don't want the mushrooms all the same length, so I'm going to do maybe a taller one and then some shorter ones. I think I'll just do 3. I'll do another one about the same size. It doesn't really matter, like I say, I'm going to push some of it into the sponge or the foam. There we go, just put that out the way. Okay. Just straighten that a little bit, just so as it's easier to push into the mushroom at the top. Or into the sponge below. No matter which way up it goes. Right, okay. They're only going to be little pointy capped ones, so I'm not well up on what mushrooms or what kind or whatever, but I know what kind of look I'm going for. I did just roughly draw what size I wanted on a piece of paper. Oh, really tiny, so I've got way too much Fimo out there. Need something just to poke up the middle. I'm just going to use the end of my Sharpie actually. I've got paint on my hands, so making the mushrooms a little bit dirty really, but so I probably will paint them white. A little bit of tan colour on top. It's bigger than I wanted really. Let me just get my thing. No, that'll be okay, that one. I'm just going to poke the wire in now, but not bake it with it on. Just going to make the hole and then I'll glue them on later. Oops, that didn't go to plan. I've poked it right through. Just seal it back up again. There we go, that's one. That can be the bigger one. I'll look for something smaller than the end of my Sharpie. Just a pencil will do. Again, I don't want to push it right through. I might just... Oh, this bit's still a bit crumbly, I think. Yeah, quite happy with that. And then just one more. I think vinyl does take a long time to go off, but I've probably had that pack for at least 5 years. Right, I'll just go and bake them. For the mouse, I've just used pillow stuffing and I did like a pear shape and then a little wedge, a smaller pear shape or wedge shape for his head. Just made it quite firm. I'm just going to keep adding this brown on. Because he's so small, normally I do like proper fur, like this little badger here, so I do them so that they're fluffy, but I'm not sure that I'll do that with something so small. I'll do his head first and see how I go. I'll have to do it on my knee though. Okay, so I just wrapped some brown fur tightly around its head and just stabbed it all over. I found these tiny little beads for eyes, so I just kept stabbing in the same place where I want the eye until an indentation formed. And I'm just going to actually sew the eyes on. I've put a little bit more fur on this eye. I'm going to do the other one, just so that it doesn't bulge out so much and it secures it a little bit as well. I'll just show you what I did with that one. So all I did was just twisted it into a bit of a sausage shape. Just stabbed it. I would probably be better with some fine needles, but unfortunately I've snapped them all. I've only got like basic stuff that you can get from Hobbycraft. And then I'll just put it around the eye. Probably should have done that a little bit more. It makes no difference because I'm going to be stabbing it again. Just watch my fingers. I can't do it on here, I'm going to have to do it on my knee again, sorry. And with the excess that's trailing, I've just spread it about or wrapped it around somewhere else. Okay, so I've tried to get the face looking the same on both sides. I'm not quite happy with this one yet. Just be very careful around the eye so I don't snap my needle. Okay, so I've decided to make him fluffy because on my little boy's opinion he's too small, and I said I've made his body smaller than I want it because if you do it furred it bulks the size up, so I've started at the bottom. And all I do is get a better piece on that. All I do is just cut a short piece like that, and then I just work above where I've just done. You can work from below as well. Just put it along, and where the last row ended, I start to stab along in a line. It will be trimmed later, so it doesn't matter that it's too long at the minute. So just keep checking if you've got any bald patches, just go further down and fill it in. Apologies for not recording everything that I did to the mouse. I continued with the brown fur, added cream fur on his belly and under his chin, and I made his little nose, his ears, his hands, his feet and his tail out of that flesh coloured Fimo that I used earlier. The reason that I used Fimo for his ears rather than needle felting them is I'm not that good that I can get them so thin, and I think it looks more realistic to have it in the Fimo actually. And I just stuck some of the wool onto the back and then glued everything on with the Gorilla Glue. For his whiskers, all I've done is got some really thin fishing line, threaded it onto a needle and passed it backwards and forwards through his snout area, making loops, and I'm now just going to cut it, cut through the loops and then trim it if they're too long. So I don't want them all the same length. I've not really secured them in any way, but because he's going to be in the bauble, he's not going to be handled or anything, so it doesn't really matter. So there you go, there's a little mouse done. I did spray him with hairspray after trimming him, just so that his fur stays quite nice and smooth and he's not fluffy. Any fluffed up bits I've just trimmed. I also did spray the background just with a layer of hairspray, only because the acrylic paint seems to be coming off wherever I've scraped by accident. Okay. So now all there is to glue him in to the bauble and then glue the bauble onto the background. Okay, so I glued the mouse in. I did have a problem with him once I didn't let him quite dry. I was jumping the gun a bit by gluing the bauble onto the clay. A point about the clay as well. The clay had shrunk, so it now fitted inside the bauble rather than the bauble sitting on top, which wasn't really a problem. I just put ribbon around the edge. There was a small gap where the clay was a bit narrower in thickness, so there was a little bit of a gap there, but the ribbon's hidden it. Yeah, so I jumped the gun and glued the bauble onto the clay, and then the mouse started to droop a little bit, and he was sagging forward, so before it had all set properly, I took it all apart and just put a little pin going through his body at the back into the flooring, just to pin him sat more upright like I wanted him to be. So that was a bit of a pain, but it looks good now. And I made a little wreath just out of honeysuckle vine, but I'm not quite sure about that. Makes it look a bit messy. And I've not decided on what lighting I want, if I want any. If I went through the back, it didn't look very good. It needs to be a little bit forward, but I think just one or two bright little bulbs. Obviously I can't use this torch. But I don't want it in the way of viewing him. I don't want something obstructing the bauble really. So I did test with these little bottle lights wrapped around the wreath at first, but they were soft white and they're a bit dull, which can look nice like a soft white, but no, I just wasn't happy with it, so I'm undecided about that still. in the other half of the bauble I did a little hedgehog. So I just needle felted some grass onto the sponge base, painted the clay dark browns and blacks and greens, just stuck twigs, sea foam and other bits on it to make it look like a messy hedgerow. I put some ferns in. I sprayed them with hairspray in the hope that they'll stay as they are, more or less. It doesn't matter if they do go brown, but I didn't want them breaking up into bits. I needle felted the little hedgehog. Well, yeah, sorry, I needle felted him, but I stuck pine needles on for his spikes, and I just slightly coloured the needles once I'd glued them on, which was a bit painstaking really. I just coloured them with a black felt tip, just to give it more variation of colour. It's got little bead eyes and a Fimo nose. So that's what I did with him. Quite pleased with him actually.